Respect and recognize your history, it'll repeat itself. So we have to have this respect for the history, our story, and people like yourself that bring our story to us. So what we're going to do is we're going to continuously flow with the social media outlets, and we're going to keep your information relevant. And for those who want to know, we can tap into it. You rolled for over an hour, Dr. J, just hitting us hard with the bop gun, with the knowledge and the information and the passion that you show for us to wake up as a nation. And I'm for anybody that's for that. If you down with waking us up, if you down with us coming together, come on board. We want to be a part of what you're doing. And if anything that you heard Dr. J mention that you want to go into more details, or you want to question, or you want to chime in, then you can email us. Our information is info@greatblacknewsnow.com and info@mediaadvocates.com. So we really want to thank you, Dr. J, for sharing this information with us. I did want to ask you about your taking Dick Gregory's children to Africa. It seems that you met him and he allowed you to take his children to Africa in the same year or a year after that. So obviously you must have had a great impression on each other. Can you just kind of go into that a little bit, please?
I think we can, if we're trying to tie things up, we can certainly use that. Dick was in the middle of the explosion of movement in the late 50s and certainly in the 60s. And so he stood with King and others, and then he devised a path of contribution. And he was conscious enough when he met my wife and I in the fall of '69 to see that we had been serious because we had at least 10 years of African experience to build on. And when we came to San Jose, we wanted to put it in the curriculum. And so we did. And one of the things we wanted was an institute of travel to Africa.
Can I speak up a little bit, Doc?
San Jose State College.
My man.
Summer Institute. And that Summer Institute was first traveling for a month in Black America and going from the Bay Area down to Los Angeles and then all the way over to Texas and then Jackson, Mississippi, Alabama, Tuskegee, and on to Atlanta and to North Carolina, Washington, D.C., Howard University, and then on to New York, and then flying to Africa. And the students got credit for that. And then that was the first month, and the second month would be traveling throughout Africa, and they got credit for that. So we had 16 or 18 students that went with us. We had a same number of community leaders that went with us, including a lawyer in a wheelchair. And he did the whole trip. But the most important group in the trip were these two girls, the Gregory girls. And somehow the Gregory read our spirit, Roslyn and myself, and he felt he could entrust us to take his 8 and 11-year-olds to Africa. And it is a challenge to take children, because you got to be careful with what they eat and what they do, and they may not be strong enough for the various journeys. But Dick, Lil was hesitant at first, but he convinced her, and the two of them allowed us, in one of our greatest moments, to take their daughters to Africa, 8 and 11, Lynn and Michelle. Gregory always talked about it whenever I was near him and he was giving a speech. He would always say that he tricked his daughters because they wanted to go to Disneyland. And he told them, if you go with the Jeffries to Africa first, well, make sure you get to Disneyland. And he would always say that those girls, once they had the African global trip that we put in place and the travel throughout Black America, they never mentioned Disneyland. Sisters, beautiful young ladies.
That's a good one, man. That's a good one.
No, but it's so true. They were with us, and to travel with a lawyer in the wheelchair and travel with two children and travel with students, that was a challenge for Ralston and I. But we had been challenging ourselves with Africa from 60, 61, 62, 63.
Yeah. They say when truth comes, falsehood dies.
Right.
So once they got the truth,
kids,
they didn't have no desire for the falsehood, for the fantasy anymore. They wanted more truth.
Family connections now. When we got to Paris and we were trying to make the connection to America, we're in the airport, 35 of us with these two young babies, and here comes this strong breeze coming at us, and we didn't know what it was, and we looked up, and there she was, Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker. Babies, and she said, who? In other words, Josephine Baker in Paris, seeing 35 black people would come to us anyway. To see the two children, that drew her right to us. And then she asked me, well, who were these? I said, they're Dick Gregory and Lillian's daughters, their first two children. And she said, oh my God, I knew them when they were babies. So she was hugging and kissing these young girls. And so we got sent off from Paris by Josephine Baker. For youngsters. Then when we got to West Africa, we had to visit Senegal and Ivory Coast and, of course, Guinea. And so when we went to the mountains of Guinea, we went up into the mountains, which is a beautiful land, and Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, and his lady were in Guinea. And so we left the capital and went up to their home in the mountains, and it was a hut. It was a two-story, beautiful design thatch roof hut with 5 fantastic rooms of red carpeting. And when we got to the house, I can just see her now coming out of the mist of the mountains to greet us. And the person who was there greeting us was Miriam Makeba. And when she saw the baby, she went wild because she knew them as little youngsters. So those youngsters, Dick Gregory's children, became lightning rods for our successful trip, and they were able to instill in their brothers and sisters to come the importance of struggle and the importance of globalism. And I believe one of the daughters was able to get her PhD from the London School of Economics and did it on the market women of Kenya. So Dick was able to see and feel our spirit. He was able to entrust us with his most prized possession, his first two of the Gregory clan. And so that was really the measure of the man, that he was able to read our spirit in that fall of 69 and say and agree to have his daughters come, and then to have his wife hesitant at first, but convinced they needed, it would be a beneficial experience for them, and so she supported it. And so when they came back, they became teaching tools and inspiration for the other Gregory kids. And so he's had more success than most, him and Lil have had more success than most in raising these children, because when you're out there in the world, it's hard to keep your hands and your control, and the society is ready to take them off into prisons or take them off into prostitution and whatever else that we've experienced. So spirit is the key. And when you look at life, you see the material side, and Dick Gregory, material side, was the great athlete. It's interesting, Dick Gregory used to run the marathon in New York and in Boston. So Gregory comes out of his young manness as an athlete, but he was running with a purpose, and then he came into the health food process. And so even though money was being made with the new health foods, for Dick it was also getting your body clean and getting your mind and spirit clean. But at the end, he did use some terminologies that made people look up. One of his books was Nigger, and he had a purpose for writing it and why he used the terms. And then at the end, theologians say Dick is not necessary when he used some of the curse words. But you were correct that he was a man of stature, moral, physical, and spiritual standing that we need to begin to understand and not just appreciate his jokes, but again, as you said, his comedy gave those others a chance to stand on something that was needed, because the biggest comedy thing in my lifetime and yours was Andy that white folks created to create a buffoonery of black folk that all of us loved it. It was a radio show and we were all listening. When it came on TV, we were all listening. But it was a caricature of black folk. But Dick comes out of that tradition, but made the comedic part of it part of the struggle, part of the consciousness, part of us seeing each other as family. So I'm glad that I knew the brother, and I'm glad wherever we met, it was a positive, never had a negative. And his children, Ayana, the beautiful singer, she paid tribute to her mother when they had a surprise celebration of her mother's birthday, and she gave me a copy of her tape. And then most recently, a brother who is close to Dick, Natsamela Thompson, Mark Thompson, who is now with the, he has his radio show, and he had a birthday, and Dick's daughter came and surprised him. I was there. Dick called in from somewhere. Minister Farrakhan called in. Marty III, the king, eldest son, called in. In other words, and for me, it was so symbolic of the unity of the black family. And so we had to give that this brother was able to be so real.
Well, we're not going to ever stop talking about him, Dr. J, ever. See, here's the thing. As long as we keep talking about our great ones, they stay alive. They stay alive in our thoughts. They stay alive in our memories. They stay alive in our dreams. They stay alive in our aspirations. And I just think it's a very unfortunate, matter of fact, it's criminal that elderly African people here in America die without knowing how great they are. They birth into the world. They go through this whole cycle of life and leave us without knowing their greatness, the greatness that they came from. They have been totally brainwashed or uninformed as to just how great we are. So we need more Dick Gregory's. We need more of the great ones that you mentioned earlier. And our whole purpose for what we're doing, Dr. J, is to inspire people that are listening and looking at what we're doing to do their own research, to become stronger and cut out all of this foolishness. I mean, if we are as great a people as you say we are, as we know we are, then it's 2017. We should have got from underneath of this by now.
But still, the negatives emerge. I understand there's a movie on black women that's as negative as you can get.
Oh, my goodness.
We have to wear that.
That's a whole nother thing, Dr. J. That's a whole nother thing. We might just mention the name of it, but we need to do a whole nother segment on that. We got pretty much an hour and a half on this one right here, and we're going to chop that up and put it out there. And, you can mention it, but I mean, you don't have any short presentations, so I really want to give that.
No, that'll be for the future, and what we should do to put a capstone to what you've done today and what we've done together is that in the legal field, there was a brother who went into the courtroom on a war footing, and he's up from the South, Georgia, educated at Howard University, and he took the law field just as Dick took the field of comedy, and I took the field of education, and others, Professor Small and some of my partners, have taken the field of culture as part of the battle
What does that mean?
United African Movement.
Okay.
Sustained, no white money, no outside money. It was a chance where all of us could come together. The Dr. Francis Chris Welsing, the Dr. Wade Nobles, who was one of our greats, and of course Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark, and great lawyers who were fighting in principle. But Alton was punished for being a strong black man, just as the others. John Carlos was punished for standing up and raising his black power fist.
All of us.
Muhammad Ali was one of the greatest of us. Was forced into submission, but his spirit, his resistance, his model still stands, and so he had to be honored by the world at the end of his life. No matter what his physical condition was, the world knew. Asia, South America, Africa knew that this brother was something special, and my wife and I, we were glad to have interacted with Muhammad Ali and glad to have met him in Harlem at the Muslim restaurant, and we were in Zaire, in the Congo, in '74, when the great fight was planned to take place between Ali and Foreman. And when he showed his relationship with the people, the African people, and how they inspired him and he inspired them. And so we have to begin to understand that we're the thing we've been looking for. Trump is not what we've been looking for. Bernie Sanders is not what we've been looking for. The Clintons are not what we've been looking for. Even a controlled and manipulated Obama is not what we've been looking for. The brother did the best he could. He resisted the systems of oppression. He helped to save the nation from complete, but he couldn't be the full African that he wanted to be, or was in his gene pool. His father coming from Kenya, that's the home of the Mau Mau, the black folks who resisted the British and paid a terrible price for it. But that eventually led to the independence of Kenya. So these struggles and these sacrifices that are made are so important, and they lead. I joke about doing a docudrama of Robert E. Lee's last
stand.
Black troops were tracing him down.
Oh yeah.
Through the swamps of Virginia and going past the Cumberland Courthouse. And that's where my people were. So the docudrama is that when the Union troops were chasing him, my people was down there and pointing out that we saw him this morning going this way and follow him. So I can see my ancestors having been a part of the drama to capture Lee. But the system of white supremacy is the system of white supremacy. And you're right, they allowed him to maintain the remnants of dignity, giving up his sword, and the ceremony that they prepared. Because white folks know that they have to heal, keep people of color in check.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Bonds of self-destruction if they're going to keep us super exploited. But we're on a victorious path, and we have to stay on there. And the victorious path means integration.
Okay, Dr. J, dig this.
Integrating with black folks, it means unity.
Let me get in here, Dr. J.
Black unity.
On the Massachusetts 54th, when they marched through New York, the Europeans were so angry at seeing a black man in uniform marching to the South to save their butt, to fight for their freedom. As soon as the army passed through on their way to Baltimore, they hung and murdered black folks for 2 days. One of the people that escaped that wrote a book called Eyewitness to Slavery. They hung us from lampposts. They murdered every black person that they could see. We had to run for our lives because these Europeans were so upset to see a black man in a uniform marching proudly with his head up high with a rifle over his shoulder. That was how they cheered us. They cheered us by murdering the so-called residents of that area because of the Massachusetts 54th. And not only that, when the Massachusetts 54th went into battle, they kicked butt from the time they started to the time they stopped to the time they captured Robert E. Lee. So our story is a great story, Dr. J, and you've done an excellent job of sharing with us, and we want to just kind of cut this right now and move on to the next segment. So, Imhotep.
Hotep, Imhotep, and Yemhotep. Peace. That's the African term for the Nile that means peace. And we had, with that, continue the struggle. As Frederick Douglass said, if there is no struggle, there's no progress.
Peace to you. I'm out.